Age of oppression in the streets, age of legends in the sheets.
This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
So this is Chapter 8 of Crown of Swords, the Figurehead, and our symbol is our Forsaken Four-Leaf Clover Snake.
Because Sheriam and everything.
And who else?
Yes. Also, Hessalam. No, not Hessalam.
Halima. H name.
And we get a reference to Delana, I think.
And Delana, who's also black, and the Keeper.
Well, because Halima's kind of in charge between the two of them. So, Halima...
But not according to the rest of the Aes Sedai. The other Aes Sedai
Delana's like Halima's beard. And nobody knows that yet.
And Delana's the one who, like, supports Egwene all the time.
Yeah, she supports whatever Egwene wants.
Yeah, it's been a minute since I've read Book 7, so... But she's always... Yeah, and it's kind of funny, and obviously we're going to talk about the chapter, then we'll dig into it like we were talking about. But as per this chapter, it's so funny in this. So I love the interaction in this chapter because you've got Egwene, and you got her thinking about like Ramonda and Lelaine, and you've got Sheriam and Delana, and the people who she like. When I first read through this, at this point in the series, I always had like my darkfriend alert. Like Black Aja, everybody's suspicious, and I always felt like Ramonda and or Lelaine, like one of those two has to be evil, right? There's no way that they're not going to be. And then like the two people that Egwene is counting on so much are just like those are the ones. And it's just all this double meeting between the ferrets and everything like that. So
there's that. I also think that Chelsea here is a huge red herring.
Oh my god, so
for the Forsaken.
much.
Yes. Oh
so
man, yeah.
much.
Chesa.
Yeah,
Chesa.
Chesa.
Chesa, yeah. Yeah.
What did I say?
Chelsea.
Yeah, you added an L, which is legit. It's probably the name he was riffing off of.
Yeah. But it's like just her like little inputs of remarks. It's like, oh, you also have to be evil. There's no way you're innocent in this.
That and the fact that she's sent out of the tent right before Egwene
and then she like
senses being freed,
and she pops up right after the fact, and you're like
at the tent.
Yeah.
In the same way that I firmly believe that Vannon is a Demandred red herring, I firmly believe that Chesa is an Arangar red herring.
Yeah, we talked about this last time. I bit so hard on the Vannon stuff way back in the day. Like I for sure I was all about that. Like guilty, 100%. Get him.
Well, I don't know if you heard. I actually took the whole guilty with the stealing of the horn thing. And there's a lot of situations early on where it looks like he may actually... Demandred's like, oh, I'm forming an army in the south. And you're like, wait, is he somehow in the Band of the Red Hand? Is he somehow controlling the Band of the Red Hand? Is he somehow controlling Matt by being Vannon? When Lanfear was disguised as...
Kaylee.
She was very fat, but walked lightly.
Yeah.
And Vannon is very frequently described as being very fat, but rides lightly.
Yeah.
And so therefore my theory is he's actually a smaller man under a mask of mirrors.
Yeah, it works,
and it's like... And same here with Chelsea, too. The whole, like... she's just set up to be the Forsaken in just such a perfect way. Yeah. And it's one of those things where I actually wonder why I haven't heard that theory before. Like, I never read that theory online, and I'm like... It was just a red herring that no one picked up on? Is it that subtle?
Yeah, I mean, she's super suspicious, but I'm all about, like, get my pitchfork, get my torch, and I'll go chase everybody down. Like, everybody's evil, 100%.
No, that's fair. I still don't fully trust Chesa because Sheriam installed her. And there's zero evidence that she's untrustworthy, and I still don't trust her.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, that's a second link. Not only is she doing untrustworthy things, but she was put in place by a darkfriend.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's bad all around, like super suspicious.
So yeah, lots of darkfriend stuff. That's what the snake is about, for sure.
And the figurehead is Egwene, of course.
Yes.
She has no power yet until war is declared.
Yeah.
Aradia, would you please read us in?
Yeah. We must stop here tomorrow. Egwene shifted carefully on her folding chair. It had a tendency to fold on its own sometimes. Lord Bryn says the army is running short of food. Our camp is certainly short of everything. 2 stubby tallow candles burned on the wooden table in front of her. That folded too, for easy packing, but it was sturdier than the chair. The candles in the tent that served as her study were supplemented by an oil lantern hanging from the center pole up near the peak. The dim yellow light flickered, making faint shadows dance on the patched canvas walls that were a far cry from the grandeur of the Amerlin's study in the White Tower, but that did not upset her. Truth be known, she herself was some considerable distance short of the grandeur normally associated with the Amerlin seat. She knew very well that the 7-striped stole on her shoulders was the only reason any stranger would believe her Amerlin, if they did not think it an extremely foolish joke. Odd things had happened in the White Tower's history. Swan had told her secret details of some of them, yet surely nothing so odd as her. Surely there have been Amerlins that were as much of figureheads as her.
But I think the age and the fact that she is so young.
Yeah, she's
And wasn't
exceptionally
raised.
young, so...
And wasn't Imerlin.
Yeah.
And wasn't Aes Sedai.
Yeah. No one's ever used that loophole that way before.
I feel like there's like a trifecta there. Is like with the age and with the not on Aes Sedai, obviously, and then also it's almost like such an obvious thing that she's planted as a figurehead. Like anybody looking at her would assume that. Whereas I could see other Amerlins being planted as a figurehead, but more subtly because like the age would have been on, whatever. But Egwene is just such a unique case on it.
Yeah, and being put in place partially because of Rand has nothing to do with her. Like that's obviously a political move about Rand. That's a flag. That's beyond the figurehead. That's a straight up flag.
Well, and the biggest part, right? The tower split, and this is like a separate faction. So,
right,
besides the rebel faction,
yeah.
If Elida won, history would have written her out as an Amerlin seat.
Oh yeah,
entirely. Like she never sat in the tower. She never led more than a few, misguided, outdated rebel Aes Sedai who. I mean, they declared an Amerlin, but it wasn't legal. That wasn't in the White Tower.
Yeah,
like this,
deal.
She was clearly a child as a figurehead designed.
Yeah, I think I might be misremembering this, but I feel like at some point we even got where they had discussed or Egwene thought something about Egwene maybe not even being punished as severely because it's like she was just a child and she was taken for like advantage of. I can't remember exactly like where my brain is remembering that from, but.
Elida has a dream about giving mercy to Egwene because she's such a valuable asset. But It's a really messed up dream that is very out of character with Egwene and would never happen.
But also the fact that Elida keeps her as an apprentice rather than like she basically tries to reintegrate her into the White Tower basically and be like, if you act as an apprentice and just be humbled that way,
that's
then
a good
I'll
point.
accept that as a defeat,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, like when she's taken.
Yeah. It's funny, in this chapter she thinks about how for keeping Moghedien secret she might get demoted to accepted, and you can kind of feel her like accepting that she would deserve that. But then when she actually gets captured and demoted to accepted, she's like, hell no, I'm the Amerlin. Yeah. That's not happening.
Well, and it's also the context as well. Like, she's thinking, like, yes, that would be a legit punishment for the crime I have committed. Whereas the other things, like, oh, yeah, Eli's going to demote her just because Eli doesn't like her.
Because that's the whole usurper versus not usurper thing, right? So
it's such a funny parallel between Rand and the girls in this chapter. Well, not just this chapter, but how they treat the Forsaken, where immediately you're like, we got to capture them and still them and execute them. But the Emmons Field are like, we got to learn stuff. I don't know anything, so I got to like educate myself here. But they do the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it makes sense. The Emmons Field folk have been put out in the world, and they're trying to leurn from everybody they encounter.
Yeah,
right? Like they're so ignorant. They've had to learn everything from like what a city is, to and in a lot of ways, I think that have you ever seen a foreign language speaker learn a language and be better at it than most native speakers?
Just like the technicality of it.
Yeah. Exactly. Just because for us it's instinct and easy, and we're lazy about it. Whereas someone who's actually learned the proper way to speak may actually have a wider vocabulary and a better a way of talking, and that's sort of how I think about.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is basically a lot of arguing about moving the army forward or not, because that's really the tension that Egwene has with Sheriam and all the other leadership.
Well, and Sheriam's goal is to keep the tower divided as long as possible, so stalling.
Which Super Skylick was saying in chat is also what Delana's doing. She doesn't actually support Egwene universally. She supports whatever stalls them out. It just happens that she supports Egwene more often than any of the other sitters.
Yeah. Egwene thinks to the point where, like, Delana sometimes supports her to the point where she wishes she wouldn't support her, where it's, like, too fervent of a rah on your side.
Yeah, because it's just destructive. All the dark friends are pointed at slow this down and break it up. Every single dark friend is doing the same thing as far as what they're trying to aim with their sabotage.
Well, and right now the dark friends still think that Egwene's going to be an ineffective leader, so they want to keep her in power.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, let's support her.
Right. In power and far away from the tower.
So she says, we're not stopping for 5 days, we're stopping for 1, both because I'm not stalling, and we're not going to eat the local people out of house and home, because we're a giant army, and if we stay for more than a couple of days, we'll eat everything they have in stock.
Because she's a good leader and actually listens to her experts. And when Bryn says this is a bad idea, she's like, noted, head of the armies telling me to not do something stupid for my army. I'll listen. I'll delegate responsibility to him.
I think that's such a big point of contention too, just like the Aes Sedai general like thoughts towards the army, where even in this chapter they're like, let's pay them less, let's not pay them at all, it doesn't even matter. It's like, that's not the way you keep an army that you need.
Typical CEO conversations. Can we not pay our workers? Is that something we're allowed to do?
We're going to call it an internship. And
right.
We're going to get experience.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do it for the exposure.
Exposure, yeah, thank you. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And that's why I always figured that one of Romaine Lettuce had to be a dark friend, was because of the whole, this action made me convinced of it, because it's like, your army would melt away. Like, this war falls apart before it gets started if you stop paying the army. Therefore, someone who's suggesting to not pay the army must literally be trying to sabotage the entire war effort, so they can't be anything but a dark friend. And it turns out neither of them are.
And or sees absolutely no value in soldiers and men.
And yet, they got themselves into being in the hall of the tower on top of a fucking army. Mixed messages. Much?
The army kind of fell in their lap. I don't really think they wanted it. It was one of those things where, like, Suian was like, yeah, I've got a Gareth Bryn.
What can we trade this for? Yeah.
What can we do with it? And it's like, well, it can make armies.
It's just like, how do you rebel against the tower without an army? Like, how...
Political
if you
maneuvering.
don't want an army...
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. As you said, CEO thinking. Completely disconnected from reality and facts.
Yeah, the idea that people sitting around in a tower thinking is always more valuable than the people on the front lines doing the hard work, making things happen.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's like the invaluable.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not invaluable, not valuable.
Yeah.
Invaluable would be a good thing.
I hate that conjugation.
Isn't that a terrible...
It's the worst. Yeah. Or like infamous and famous. Why would you do this?
I always thought infamous was like for a bad reason. I don't know why, but
that's
I always
how
thought
it's used, but
that's the connotation, sure, but
it's
you know,
a
not
stupid
necessarily
conjugation. Just stupid. Don't do this to me, English.
We should get a foreign speaker who learned English to weigh in on this.
Oh, yeah, they would probably have a better opinion about it.
It's true, though. It's so true.
I love the way he said, don't do this to me, English, like an abused, like, don't do this to me anymore, please. I've been beaten enough, English, stop, please. Your rules don't make any sense, and your pronunciation sucks.
Yeah, well, me and my warder do sometimes get into sort of, you know, nihilistic spirals about how illogical our fucking language is, so.
Mm-hmm. English linguists are sadists.
Yeah, well, English is rude, just on every level, so I suppose we shouldn't expect any better of it.
I'm trying to think of all the linguists I went to college with were the kind of people who would get up and run in the morning before swim practice. That's all I'm going to say about the linguists. They're insane.
So not to be trusted, yeah.
Not to be trusted.
I get it, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to laugh at Egwene thinking that 6 months of being belittled is equivalent to a lifetime of being belittled, because that's very teenager of her.
Yeah. Well, she's just 18, right?
Yeah. I'm just like, I remember being 18 and jaded about how awful things are, and it's really cute.
I had no idea how bad it can get.
Also, considering you can live hundreds of years.
Yeah. It's like, I get it. It's 6 months dragged on, or 6 days, or however, month and a half. I don't know why I said 6 months. Month and a half?
6 weeks.
Yeah. And she's like, it's a lifetime's worth of practice. I'm like, no, it's a month and a half of practice, actually.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of that with these characters, though, right? Like, Rand gains a lifetime of sword practicing skills in about a year.
Yeah.
That's true, yeah. He does.
And that happens with a lot of these characters, is they gain a lifetime... Egwene gains a lifetime of Amyrlin experience through Suian in about 6 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, she does throw herself into things very intensely.
She does,
So-
like, irresponsibly so sometimes. Usually, most of the time.
Yeah, we were talking about obsessions earlier. She makes
Yeah.
us all look like slackers combined.
Yeah.
Matt clearly gains a lifetime of juggling experience in about 6 weeks. There's no other explanation.
Well, he's
no
got-
other
True.
explanation.
He's
Yeah.
got quick hands,
Oh, okay. Quickest
right?
hands I've ever
That
seen.
we learned
Therefore,
that, like, at the beginning. He's got the quick hands, yeah. No, I honestly, yeah, Egwene for me, like, I love Egwene. She's such a fantastic character, and she reminds me of, like, the, you know, incredibly talented artist that burns out at age 24, right? It's, you live hard, you do so much, and then it's, like, gone from the world. And that's exactly what she does.
I do feel in that way her death was kind of earned.
Yeah.
Like, she burned so hot at both ends that, like, it was inevitable that something was going to break.
Yeah.
And that something was Egwene.
Yeah, she lived too many lifetimes and burned up her whole lives to die allotment in 2 years.
And I mean, like, for a good cause, obviously. Like, I that's one of the... I mean, I felt that. I don't know how much you guys have talked about this and Egwene, but, I mean, since it's Egwene, I want to talk about it. No, I mean, it's like, it was such a critical plot point at the end of the series. Like, she basically saves the universe as we know it.
No big deal.
Yeah, and without her doing what she had to do, and, like, what she, from the beginning, from the get-go, is, like, go, 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 within 2.5 years. Like, how old did she get to? Like, 19, 20? And that's it?
Yeah, no, I like you're comparing her to, like, an artist, like some kind of, like, insane rock star or something, right? Just, like...
Yeah, I mean, the list...
burned so
list
hot, so bright, and then...
Yeah, what, the 27 Club or whatever you
yeah,
call it?
or
So,
24 Club, whatever. Yeah, 27 Club.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like thinking of her like that. Because, yeah, it makes sense why she died, even though I hate it. You know, it's like, yeah, how do you live a normal life after all that?
Yeah.
And it is so true to life that so many of our heroes, like, you look back at either when they died or when they accomplished what we think of it, and it's, like, way younger than you would ever expect.
I literally
right?
just watched something or read something. It was like Biggie Smalls was like under 30. He was like 25 or something when he died. And it's like,
Yeah,
it doesn't
Jimi
make any
Hendrix.
sense.
I
Yeah.
was just falling down a Jimi Hendrix rabbit hole last week, being like, he was how young?
I mean, that's like the Kurt Cobain. Like, I think he was 27 and then like, yeah.
Yeah. Fucking Isaac Newton, for fuck's sake.
My theory about this is not necessarily that your age matters, but that everyone has one good idea in their life, right? And, like, you have one shot to get that out, and if you get it out at a young age and then die, great. You know, some people it just takes a little longer for them to get out that good idea. But people who get that idea out young and then, like, keep trying to repeat that success are often going to fail because... Just that, like, yeah, it's hard to continually come up with good ideas. It's much easier, not easier to execute, but, like, if you are able to be successful in your life, it's because you are good at executing on ideas, not good at coming up with ideas. Does that make sense?
Yeah, until you suggest that having a good idea is a, indicator of shortly attainable death, but...
No, so you're saying correlation with causation. That's survivorship bias that you're throwing in my face, because people who die at 27 and haven't had a chance to enact their good idea, we've never heard of. It's only the ones who have got their good idea out that we hear of.
That's true. There are a lot. Yeah. I mean, I see the point you're coming from there, too. You don't hear about the people who pass away early that didn't make, like, a worldwide name for themselves.
But if they'd lived till 50, would have.
Huh. That makes me think of this really intense quote that I cannot remember the attribution for, but it's, I'm less concerned with why the effect is, I'm less concerned with why Einstein was brilliant than how many Einsteins died without ever even learning to read.
Mm-hmm.
That's more of the relevant question, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah, slaving away in a farm field somewhere.
yeah, it's like, that's the tragedy, right? It's not that we have...
Yes, it's a tragedy, but also the vast majority of all humans have been farmers.
Well, yes, but, this was a very specific 20th century social commentary.
Yeah, I was going to say, Seth
Yes.
hitting us with the technically...
Yeah. If we stay in the focus of that quote, then...
Yeah. But, certainly before the 20th century, the vast majority of all humans.
Yes, it's not a dig at agriculture.
Whoever came up with the plow, fucking Einstein of his day.
No, for sure.
There you go.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So Egwene, how about Egwene now, hey? How's she doing?
Hey.
Yeah.
put away my social justice soapbox.
Speaking of, the social pecking order was quite rigid.
Mm,
And Suian stood a long way further down than she had.
Swan and Sheriam.
You want to talk about bad ideas? Let's talk about social pecking order of Aes Sedai.
Ugh.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, because I was thinking about the concept of that, like the whole power being the indicator for where you are on the social ladder. And sometimes I like to try to attribute stuff to, like, Black Aja. Like, the ineffectualness of the White Tower in general is a lot to do with the Black Aja infiltration. Like, why don't the Browns go set up schools? Why don't the Greens go, do a mandatory 10-year service at the Borderlands? Like, a lot of stuff that would logically make sense doesn't happen. But the power social structure, I don't think that's a Black Aja thing, because that's something that was around in the Age of Legends.
Less rigidly so, but yeah.
Or to less rigid, but to an extent. Like, Luz Theron being the strongest channeler of all time, whatever you want to call it, and at the top of the social hierarchy, it wasn't necessarily because he was the best leader, because he made bad decisions. So I wouldn't want to say that that's like a Black Aja thing, because it definitely has, I feel like that's got some sort of like, that was an Age of Legends thing that got carried down somehow.
It's a very human
It's
nature
also
thing.
just, yeah, and just ineffective leadership in general thing,
Yeah.
right? Just like...
Small, scared people trying to do their best often resort to strength to organize.
It's also a very simple metric, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's very rarely a question of who's the stronger. And that's where the whole culture of determining, well, who's was a novice longer, who was an accepted longer, who, all that stuff arose when there was conflicts. But for the most part, for most Aes Sedai, it's very clear who's higher on the pecking order. And so I can see where, like, maybe even during the breaking, that very much became a crutch on how do we figure out who's in charge. Well, we can't, like, spend a bunch of time negotiating. We just have to rely on this raw power metric. Yeah, or dueling or anything like that, yeah. And then we come up with all these, like, obscure rules around who gets to be higher ranked, so we don't have to, like, when you can't tell just from strength, you don't have to, like, actually fight.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's easy to pin a lot on the Black Aja, but this is just
and it's just like that. I don't think it. Yeah, and I don't actually know if it was Age of Legends, but like I'm pretty sure that there was like some variety of that, because Age of Legends was Age of Legends, but it was also very classist. So it was Age of Legends for some people, but there's still the people who maybe it wasn't as legendary for.
Yeah, and I mean, the Forsaken all definitely carry a power ranking bias with them, and I can't think that's all because they're the big bads. That feels like it's just the baseline that they started at.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah, I agree.
Age of oppression in the streets, Age of Legends in the sheets.
I mean, probably. I mean, it's probably more than just chora trees planted in those cities, if you know what I mean.
Well,
A little explanation about the armies. The armies have not a wide strip, but a ring 20 strips wide between the army and the Aes Sedai camp. They are separate. They don't interact. Warders don't go into the camps, and vice versa, right? These are two very separate entities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's that comment later when Bryn gets bonded to Suian, and he's like, I wish all my soldiers could experience this power. And there is that, man, it would be nice to see the Aes Sedai out there interacting with the soldiers, looking for warders.
I think that's why the soldiers don't want them out there. It's because they're afraid they're going to get bonded, because that's what Aes Sedai do. And it's like, more communication, please.
As a soldier, I would really have to wonder if being bonded to an Aes Sedai would be good. Because, like, if she dies, you're fucked, right? First of all. That's bad. But then, like, I'm in a battle. Anything that's going to make me faster, stronger, less tired than the guy I'm fighting, like, I will take any advantage if my life is on the line.
I think Gawain even makes almost the same argument as Bryn the second he is cognizant after getting the bond. It's like any soldier who consents to it is like, whoa.
Except Rand.
Well, he has reasons. Yeah.
It makes sense why the Warder Bond was created in the first place. It's like, we need stronger soldiers. We need super soldiers. And don't tell me that's not where we're going in real life, too. We're going to get super soldiers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the hard point, too. Being the Warder doesn't necessarily have to be a death sentence, because you can release a bond.
Mm-hmm. You can. You absolutely can.
after, if I was within my Aes Sedai for, 50 years, whatever, 20 years, 10 years, and I didn't want that to happen, I feel like that's a conversation you could have, but there also could be like a, first 5 years, if something goes wrong, I'm going to try to release you before I die. I feel like you should have those like as, little sub notes in the contract.
Prenuptials kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But then the question is, how many Aes Sedai die from natural causes and how many die from violence?
At this point in the world, like, not many.
Yeah, it's true, because they have warders and stuff.
Before all the shit happens in the series, like, a lot of Aes Sedai don't die. Like, 20 years before this series started, I can't imagine that, like, Aes Sedai deaths were very much.
Dude, 20 years before the series started is when there was a whole killing streak of Aes Sedai who went searching for Rand. It was literally the peak of Aes Sedai deaths.
Well,
like when Rand was born, there was a whole battle. Like,
I mean,
you
like,
literally picked the worst number you could have. Any other number.
Okay, in the last 20 years.
20 years ago was exactly the time when all of the searchers for Rand were slaughtered by the Black Ajah.
Okay, I take it back.
More sisters died in the White Tower than at any other time in the history of
I medium take it back, where it's like more died, but that's still like in the span of things. Like, I feel like it's a danger of the profession, if you will. So, okay, bad time frame. I take that back. But anyways, yeah.
Got more exposition about how Swan is teaching Egwene to be a good Amerlin by checking on random stuff throughout the administration. Chesa randomly talking to herself constantly, like that's normal, which I personally never have wanted to talk out loud to myself when in a group of people.
Well, she's doing it to give advice to Egwene, isn't she?
Yeah, but it's like
exactly
under the guise that that's a normal behavior to just talk to yourself while in a group. Under what context is this subtle?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the suspicious vibes are coming out for Chesa.
So not subtle.
Chesa? Chelsea?
Chelsea. We're going to rename her Chelsea.
Yeah.
Christina? I would just say that, like, I think all the rest of the Aes Sedai are just completely ignoring her. So it's like she could be muttering, she could be singing, she could be cussing them out, and she's a servant. They don't care. Doesn't matter. It's going to go in one ear and out the other.
But, like, who's sitting in the corner? Like, oh, these people are talking. I'll just randomly discuss the book I'm reading. Like, who does that?
You ever been to a bar and, like, the bartenders are talking shop and you kind of just space out and don't pay attention?
Yeah, but they're not talking to themselves.
You go to different bars than I go to. I've met some interesting bartenders. Woo, boy.
That's fair.
Yeah. Portland, man. It's a...
Yeah, I mean, she's quirky, right? Like, that's the thing she does.
But no, I agree. It's very weird. I want her to be evil.
Yeah, you think there's, like, ulterior motives going on here, besides her just trying to, like, help out Egwene. Like, there's gotta be something under, but it's not there.
You're like, what level is she working for somebody else? Is she working for some of the other sisters? Is she working for the Black Ajah? Is she working for the Forsaken?
Yeah.
Is she Forsaken? Is she influenced by Padden Fane?
Right?
Slowly, like,
Another Millie Skane?
What's going on?
What's happening?
Yeah. Nothing.
It's ridiculous.
Red frickin' herring, Jordan. Red herring.
It's almost like a textbook version. I also wonder at why Sheriam is annoyed that Chesa is around so much, given that Sheriam is the one who put Chesa here. I mean, I guess I figured she's annoyed that Chesa's not obeying her orders over Egwene's, but it's just funny to me that she's like, you invited this woman into the situation at large. I guess it's probably because she can tell at this point that Chesa is really loyal to Egwene rather than to her.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
That might be it, yeah. She expected loyalty and didn't get it.
Yeah. So it's not so much that she's annoyed at Chesa for being at these meetings, is that she's, like, annoyed at her spy for completely falling through. It's like, this is what you get when you don't order a darkfriend for these things.
Yeah, there could be, like, a level of her being annoyed that she hasn't sent Chesa, like, out of the room, where it's like I'm above the servant. Why are the servants here if we're supposed to be discussing things? I could see that level of, like, send these people away, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just Sheriam put Chesa here. Like,
yeah,
you'd think she'd. I don't know.
It's because she's a dark friend. That's why.
Exactly. Like, that's the whole thing. Is like, why isn't Chesa a dark friend? Right? She should be a fucking dark friend. Like, she should be.
Like, Sheriam was lazy when she didn't make sure to get a darkfriend for this
Sheriam's
role.
the worst darkfriend.
So freaking, like, she puts in the bare minimum. She thought being Black Aja would be a easier way to the top of power.
Yeah, she's in over her head here.
She's the lazy. She's seriously like when the Dark One hired her, he was like, "Listen, I know your resume say you were a hard worker, but you've been checking Facebook a lot. Like, like we got some issues here. We'd like you to get back to work on, causing evil. What exactly do you do around here?
Maybe they should like cut off some of her fingers to encourage her or something.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. Just a thought.
And we've got this hilarious triple blind spot Oh wait, no, first we have Egwene getting another headache.
Yeah, I did notice that.
Because I'm assuming Halima's trying to make sure that Egwene's attention is elsewhere when she goes to do the thing.
I would assume, but again, this looks like Chesa is giving her the freaking headache.
Oh, it does.
Talk about red herring.
Yeah.
Like,
so much suspicious stuff.
And then Chesa even suggests that she looks like she's got a headache at the end, and like she needs her head rubbed, and it's like, is she working for Arengar? Like,
yeah.
Is she Arengar? This is where I like fuck Tamandred. I want to find notes that says fucking Chesa.
Chasengar?
Chasengar. That's my new theory. Chasengar. I'm shouting it high and wide. That was Jordan's original intent when he wrote this book. Chesa was Arengar. Absolutely. I'm sticking with it. Oh my god. And it's only later when fans figured it out. That's it. Fans figured it out, and he didn't want to reveal that. It was too obvious, so he switched it over to Halima.
I'm
That's so funny.
here for it.
And she's like, yeah, she was seen outside the tent after Logain was freed, but that's clearly like if she was a Forsaken, she wouldn't have been seen.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you can bend light. What a fucking revelation in book 7. Nothing about Egwene's reasoning, it makes sense because she's panicking. Like, anyone who knows to free Moghedien would know to hide themselves behind a weave of light or a mask of mirrors. Like, it does not matter who it is. Clearly, they're not going to just walk up with their face bare to the world and do the thing. Even though Halima did, because sneaky. Actually, probably not.
Hiding in plain sight.
Yeah. I mean, why not have two serving women see each other? Like, surely they can become friends, right? Surely some of these random serving women, Halima and Marigan, like, there's no reason why they couldn't be friends.
Chesa. Okay. Shout out to Rafe.
Fix it, Rafe. Fix it.
Make Chesa a Forsaken.
Make Chesa a Forsaken.
I mean, that's totally possible, yeah.
I wouldn't mind seeing Chesa and Halima combined.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah,
You could combine a lot of the servants. Like, even the fact that we have, like, the sub-servants underneath the servant of, like, the two other people. There's, like, 2 more people who are referenced.
Yeah, Mary and Salim.
Who just and they just... Yeah, and they just get murdered, like, immediately. So there isn't technically... Like, you wouldn't introduce that many serving people in a TV show. That's just too much space.
Yeah, one maid.
Aren't they murdered by Halima?
Yes.
Yeah, because they, like, may have seen and may have talked or something, so they just, like, get killed.
Yeah. Just out of hand.
Yeah.
And again, another indication that Chesa is a darkfriend because she's the only one of the 3 that wasn't killed.
Or that she killed them because she was jealous of her fiefdom or whatever. Yeah, no, Rafe, please listen to this podcast and hear our opinions and take them seriously.
Character merging. Here you go.
Yeah, there you go. We get the 2 servants. One produced by Romanda, the other one produced by Lelaine. So Romaine produces 2 servants. These are baby spinach, shall we call them?
Sure. Little spinach sprouts.
Little spinach sprouts. Brussels sprouts.
Brussels sprouts, yes.
I like that.
And I mean, they're really a meaningless part of the plot that most people like will skip by without a second thought. Like, they're just so useless.
Yeah.
Nothing against them. They're just meaningless.
They're not even good servants, frankly.
Yeah, not really. Egwene hates dealing with them. That's not a good servant.
Whereas Chesa, she enjoys quite a bit.
And knows her damn job.
Egwene puts on the bracelet, which connects her to Marigan.
Because she's honestly a total dumbass about this bracelet thing. I will never understand why she's thinks that no one will notice this bracelet moving around and being a match to this necklace. Like,
yeah,
these are women with fine tastes, and 150-ish of them, you think none of them is going to put that together.
That's more proof that this series was written by a man, because I didn't have a second thought about that. I was like, oh yeah, no one would notice
Oh my
that.
God, it's so dumb. It's so dumb. I'm not even that much of a jewelry person. But, like, it's this beautiful segmented bracelet that has a matching choker necklace. The necklace is way too fine for the servant in the first place. And then these three powerful women have been sharing the bracelet and the servant and the neck. It's just, like...
But, I mean, okay, so counterpoint, perhaps, and again, this is just like me rambling here, Egwene coming from a village where, you know, jewelry wasn't really that big of a thing. Like, how much was she ever exposed to? Maybe she wouldn't put together the fact that people would notice jewelry.
She notices jewelry.
This was Egwene and Nynaeve and her.
Yeah.
All great. Like, Egwene certainly would have noticed jewelry.
Yeah, I could
Egwene,
see
Elaine.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah. So I've always thought it was a weird, like, we'll just hope nobody notices, and if anyone does, it'll unravel the entire hiding of Forsaken plan. Guess we'll just hope for the best. Like,
put the scarf around her neck, and then good.
Well, it's the same.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with the pretending to be Aes Sedai. Let's just hope nobody finds out about
which I also
that.
find
Like,
ridiculous as all fuck. So, teenagers.
the fact that Nicola blackmails them, she should have blackmailed them so much harder.
Oh my God, right? Right? And Nicola's older than them. She's not a teenager. She should have seen how to make that go.
In the professional experience of Seth and Aradia blackmailing people, they are advising blackmail harder.
Yes, because I'm definitely the kind of person who blackmails all the time.
Yeah.
How do you think I got this podcast?
Hey, you know, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do.
You got to blackmail the right people. Get them, make the right connections.
Yeah,
That's how I got all my listeners.
Yeah.
I blackmailed them
clearly.
all.
That's how we got all the guests.
Hey, that email may have been threatening. I don't know. I didn't read it.
Brett, I have your P tape. That's all I'm going to say.
Threats through email, but no one's threatened because they don't read their email. Okay, I'm dead.
So she comes up with a ridiculous, it's a remembrance gift of when they left.
Because they're never coming back, so I need to remember them.
I think the only benefit is that no one who sees Egwene also sees Marigan. It's two totally different worlds. They don't really connect that often, so that's the only way that people can't make that connection.
Yeah, just like not even taking note of the servant.
Or you could say that like Marigan was friends with Egwene and Elaine, and they gave her the collar, and she was this is a servant who happens to be friends with the same people who were friends with the Iron
That's true.
You could say, well, they got this, they bought them together, they gave me the bracelet, they gave her the collar.
I suppose.
There could be a longer
Get some of Matt in his D&D backstory writing mode on this, and that'll fix it up.
No. That is not canon. That never happened.
Fine.
How did Egwene learn about the ferrets?
I assume Swan ferreted it out. I honestly... No, yeah, it says Swan had acquired several pieces of information today. One could be put to good use now. Something, Swan is smart.
Yeah. I mean, and Swan is smart. She's very good.
Most underrated ally.
I mean, yeah.
Everyone who says Egwene is great, I'm like...
I mean, look at the mentor here. But I mean, again, crazy, the social hierarchy of the Aes Sedai, crazy. Like, just because Swan was stilled, and even Swan thinks it to herself, like, I still have my brain, I still know everything I knew. How do people not put that together?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I mean, Aes Sedai are pretty individualistic, so, like, there is that level of, I don't know, superiority, complexy type, I'm so up here and so much better than you, then there's no way that Swan, who just got stilled, could ever elevate someone else to a higher status. Like, there's got to be some sort of...
Ineffective CEO thinking?
Just arrogance.
Yeah.
Tower ruled by committee. Right? I mean, how many times have you seen just the dumbest decisions come out of a committee? Not because it wasn't full of intelligent people, but just because no one really had control, and everyone's half-baked idea got compromised into something that doesn't work for anyone.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah, everyone always says, and I've certainly made the point, that the White Tower is ruined by the Black Oddjaw, but we were talking about it earlier. I think the Black Tower is as much ruined by committee as it is by Black Ajah.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what the Ajah means. It's Ajah is old tongue for committee.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like...
It's true. It's 7 committees. It's a committee of committees,
It's
and you
7,
wonder why
and
they
it
get
really
nothing
is.
done. Yeah. Which then takes me into a really incongruous statement of the choosing of an Amerlin was as hotly contested as electing a mayor in the Two Rivers. Except nobody
Yes,
stands
that's great.
against her father in the Two Rivers. So I don't know where the hotly contested part is coming
Well, she was
from.
saying Devon Ride and Watch Hill or whatever had some contested elections. Emmons Field was like a...
Two Rivers is
yeah.
the region, not the town. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, I heard Two Rivers, and it's such a close synonym to Emmons Field, I just blew right past what she was
Yeah.
saying there.
So glad that Brett immediately was like, this is why, because I was like, I don't know either. I wonder what that... And then Brett was like, oh, Two Rivers isn't Emmons Field. And I was like...
It's an easy mistake to make.
Yeah,
I
it's
do
an
it all the
easy
time.
mistake to make. Yeah, no, it's definitely a head palm moment.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
The other towns really don't matter.
It's
you
true.
know.
One of them
They
gets
really
raised to the
don't.
ground. Whatever, it's fine.
The fact that Terran Ferry
Got wiped out.
wiped out.
Yeah,
Every
it's great.
resident in Terran Ferry is killed.
There are a bunch of
Every
thieves.
single one of them.
No, some escaped. A bunch of them escaped across. That was literally
Some
a
of them
plot
did
point.
escape. Yeah, okay.
Not
fair
all,
enough,
but
fair
like
enough.
probably most of them, definitely.
But the town is gone,
Yeah.
right? The town is... No one is who lived there is there anymore.
But they're a bunch of thieves anyway, so who cares? You forgot about that point.
Oh, I did forget about that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. So but Terran Ferry comes back with a whole new set of residents. I'm assuming some end up returning,
Yeah,
but
they
like,
send new people to resettle it. Inevitably, some of the refugees will come back.
Yeah. So each town, the point
Yeah.
of that was each town has a mayor.
Yeah, and not all of them have Barack Obama. So the next thing I have is that Siane was who suggested Swan, which just popped out to me because Siane is so important in like however many books. And I never noticed that it was her that put Swan forward for becoming Amerlin. Just a little story about, how Amerlin's decided, blah, blah, blah. All of that's just like world building exposition, blah, blah, blah. But it was Siane Harriman of the White who is at the core of hunting down the Black Ajah in the tower later. She's who Elida goes to and is like,
Nice.
hey, can you maybe kind of sort of discover Alviaran's Black Ajah, except that's not what I asked at all. Siane!
And it makes sense that after 4 Amerlins are killed by the Black Ajah, someone who doesn't support who's very anti-Black Ajah sort of, suggests a better solution than... They imply here that these Amerlins died from old age.
And, yeah, no.
If you don't read between the lines, like, oh, they elected a bunch of very old Amerlins. I always think of the Amerlin election as the Pope election, the Pope's election. Like, they got the white smoke, and then they got old and died. Yeah.
Yeah.
The reality is they weren't that old. They were just killed by the Black
Not all
Ajah
of
and made
them.
to look like they died in
One
their
was
sleep.
killed by the Red Ajah.
They had a
The red, the black. Yeah. The nastiness of 20 years ago was bad.
I heard they all had pre-existing conditions of like heart problems. So I don't know, something like that.
Wow. COVID conspiracies there.
I'm sorry.
So one of the things, the next thing I have is basically the freeing of Moghedian.
Yeah, we just got Egwene being sad about how she's a figurehead and bitch, more exposition, some refreshing.
It's a pretty exposition heavy. I wanted to say, the last time we saw Egwene was in the epilogue of Lord of Chaos.
With this scene.
With this exact scene.
Yeah.
So we're getting a lot of recap. This is sort of, as I said, in the beginning of every book, there's usually one chapter with our new main characters that is mostly exposition and recap. And this is the Egwene exposition recap chapter. To be like, here's Egwene, here's what's going on, here's who all the characters are. So
yeah, we've got Egwene confronting Sheriam about the ferrets, the 10 Aes Sedai who were sent to the tower to make sure that the Loghain rumor didn't die. And it's a great scene where Chesa is hunched over her sewing in the corner, pretending nothing's happening. And the second Egwene tells her to leave, she is out the door. Like, blurring. She goes so fast.
I mean, she's great because she also likes to be involved in, like, the political maneuvering stuff. She finds it fun, but she also doesn't want to be here.
Also, she had to go leave the tent so she could go free Loghain.
Also that. Definitely.
Not Loghain.
Definitely. Yeah.
Why do
I don't know.
Because Egwene worries that Logain is the one who comes back and frees her. Logain is potentially in the situation, but he's not the prisoner.
Oh, can I point out one thing before we... It's just in the whole, like, when Egwene is questioning Sheriam, but, like, tell me the truth. She literally thinks that she's trying to work out evasions, but then says, or thinks to herself, but the 3 oaths trapped her. So it's such a funny little take, where it's like, yeah, she's super nervous and is trying to figure out what to say, but it's not because she's getting trapped by the oaths.
Being trapped by the implications of the oaths. Because
Yeah,
she can't
exactly,
blow her cover, but yeah, it's...
Yeah. It's just such a funny little, like, you know...
Yeah, there is that in-between lie. She can lie. Most of us can lie even when it's obvious we're lying.
Mm-hmm.
And you can sort of get away with that in polite society sometimes. She can't.
Yeah.
This is, like, she has to... If she's going to lie, it has to be an undetectable lie.
You gotta be, like, doubly careful, triply, like...
Even more so because you don't actually have the one power limiting your... Like, it's very easy to slip and say, oh... In a series of questions, maybe you accidentally lie because you don't catch yourself in time, whereas the one power would have caught you.
Right.
And that's exactly how Egwene gets Sheriam. She's asking her a series of questions, and Sheriam lies without thinking twice.
Right, because she's only human, not magically bound.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, this scene always made me very convinced that, like, because Sheriam is behaving in a way that is very consistent with being the oaths, being bound by the oaths, did not think of her as a darkfriend at this point. But I wanted to point out this thing about Egwene's chest because it's more of Robert Jordan's POV writing, right? This is 2 strong, powerful women having a political and intrigue power struggle, and Sheriam is speaking to Egwene's chest because she doesn't want to meet her eyes. And so she's just speaking to her torso because it's not her eyes. It's not about Egwene's anatomy. Egwene's not thinking about her anatomy. It's purely a matter of avoiding the eye contact. And given how much I rag on Robert Jordan for obsessions with boobs, it's like, credit where credit is due. His POV writing, when you pay attention to how he describes it, he's never not conscious of that.
Yeah, no, and that's where, like, people are like, oh, Robert Jordan's such a perv, and I'm like, no.
His characters.
His male characters are fucking pervs,
Yeah.
and he writes them that way.
Yeah.
But his female characters aren't. Very, like, he's not in female POVs writing about how boobs are bouncing all over the place. Because female characters don't fucking notice that.
I mean, not necessarily. But
it's like every once in a while.
But yeah,
Yes.
it's just nice that, like, Egwene is standing right up in Sheriam's, like, personal space, and Sheriam is speaking to her chest. Like, she's got boobs, like, in her face, and yet that is not what the narrative makes us think about at all. It's all about the tension between this truthfulness and power, and is an 18-year-old going to dominate a 40-year-old, and, like, this. It's just lovely. I love how his POV writing just, like, there's always another layer of how well constructed that is.
This brings me back to an old argument. Gosh. Remember when I brought this one up, that the ability of women to sense the one power in each other is more like the women able to see boob size, and men can't sense how strong they are in the one power because it's more like dick size, and you can't see that through people's pants.
I do not remember this
That's
argument.
So funny.
It's only when they're engaged that you can tell.
Exactly.
Oh
Only
God.
when they've seized the source, only then can I tell exactly how large their power is.
Wow.
That's so funny.
All with women, you can see how large their tracts of land are from any distance.
Okay. That's you know.
This is
I
not the
don't
first time I've made
remember this argument from before. That's amazing.
I also can't say that you're wrong about that. So I mean, hey, it points to you.
Especially, and I've also made the point that seizing the power is often how the language around it is how women and men describe orgasm.
Oh, yeah,
in terms
100%.
of men are from Mars, women are from
Yeah.
Venus, sort of way. Yeah,
Exactly.
for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which
Well,
is
like-
a theme of this book, right? Men,
Yeah.
women dichotomy, right?
And
Like,
you've got
so-
the power being like, you know, drug use and things like that.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
definitely on that side.
yeah.
with the addiction and the
Yeah.
the especially with taint.
Yeah, Frosted Angel in the Sky, definitely. But as we all know, bisexual people don't exist. Certainly not in this world. So,
Dude, I was again listening ahead a little bit and listening to Avienda and Elaine's relationship, and I was like, there's a pair of bisexual people
So much
in this
tension.
world. Oh my gosh, so much sexual tension between the two of those people, and with Rand as well.
oh yeah, no, that is bisexual as fuck, and also bisexual Matt. pansexual Matt. Matt has zero inhibitions on who he thinks is sexy. But yeah, no, the Elaine Avienda Rand thing is like, just fucking say it already. Gah.
And and I think the next thing is Egwene sensing the collar being taken off.
Yep, pretty much.
And we went into this a little bit in the epilogue because this scene happens twice, and this is the, I don't even know if I would say I think this might be the only time we get the same scene 2 different times from the same POV.
No,
now we get the same scene from many different POVs, but from the same POV.
This isn't from the same POV though.
Is this not from Egwene's POV in both cases?
Moghedien gets released from Moghedien's POV.
Yes, but then we flash in that scene to Egwene's POV, and she senses the bracelet coming off in the epilogue. We actually are in Egwene's head.
Does he use the same paragraph?
He does.
Oh.
There's actually, if you go back and actually look at the epilogue of Lord of Chaos.
Oh, we remember we talked about that. Yeah.
I actually opened up this chapter, and I read from this chapter, and the words that Chesa says are the same words.
How much of a block is it? Is it like a couple paragraphs, or?
No, it's the words that are said out loud are exactly the same. The descriptions are all completely different.
Interesting.
And this,
okay.
And more extensive.
And with this, it's in the middle of the end of the paragraph of the chapter rather than the literal end, so it's positioned differently. Yeah.
And you cut to it literally at the sudden stab of pain.
Right.
In the epilogue.
Right.
The whole beginning of this chapter isn't in
this
the
is
epilogue.
what's happening while that conversation in the epilogue is happening. Yeah.
It's a weird, very weird emphasis, and I have to wonder if it had something to do with the publishing process, or it was a mistake on his part. I don't understand why the scene is in the books twice.
It's kind of like he wanted the cliffhanger for the Lord of Chaos. He wanted you to know that when you were going to wait 2 years for the next one to come out.
Exactly.
And then he was like, oh, but I also want to give you some backstory on how that happened. And who else's perspective would you put it in, if not Egwene's here?
For sure. I also thought that it was an interesting way for Robert Jordan to start saying hey, so there's a lot going on here, and you might want to reread some of the events with a new eye, because this is one of the only times we get foreshadowing within your first read, right? Because Egwene is sitting there freaking out. Who did this? Who did this? Who did this? What's going on? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And you're sitting there just yelling at her. It was Halima! It was everything you're thinking is wrong. And even on your first read, no matter how dense of a reader you are freaking out.
Is that true? Do we know Halima at this point is Forsaken?
Yeah, because Moghedien knows who she is when she walks into the tent. And she says, call me Arengar. But Moghedien's like, you're Halima? But you're Arengar?
And that's in the epilogue of the last.
Yeah, so it's you get this chance to have that screaming at the book for not knowing what it's doing, even on your first read. Which, granted, at the 7th book, you've probably reread the first 6 several times. But maybe not. Maybe not.
Yeah.
But it really does undercut the argument that Chesa is a red herring. Because in the last book, it was already known. And that's where, I think this was written... I think he wrote this before the epilogue. That I think he started you finish book 6, you send it to the editor, you start book 7. They want something more in the epilogue, you repurpose the scene.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then he gets to test out the single event time synchronization that he uses 3 times throughout the whole
series.
And
it's hinting to the readers hey, if you don't like me doubling back and going over events again, you're going to hate it in a few books. Go back and the events.
I'm not sure he was that prescient, but yeah.
Just wait, everybody. In a couple of years, you're going to be miserable. Yeah.
You know how this chapter goes back over things?
Yeah.
That's what Crossroads of Twilight's gonna do for the whole book.
Yeah. Super Skylight is saving your theory, though, that Chesa doesn't have to be a red herring only for Arengar. She could be a red herring for just being a darkfriend and a different Forsaken or a different agent of a different Forsaken. So we can maintain suspicion.
The fact that she was sent out of the tent right before freaking Moghedien is freed.
Moghedien. Yeah.
All of a sudden,
she
now
does
I'm
get
wondering,
sent out. Yeah.
Do we learn that in the epilogue?
I asked you. You said yes.
Well, no, because I'm remembering from the flashback that Moghedien has of that scene. That's the wording I'm remembering is from the flashback. That's later in this book.
The flashback is later.
So now I don't remember if it's in the epilogue. I don't think it is in the epilogue. I think your red herring thing is watertight still. I just fact checked myself.
People are checking.
Super Skylink.
Because like we see that scene 3 different times, twice from Egwene's POV and once from Moghedien in the flashback. And if we see it again, it's gonna be 4. It's gonna be like, Jesus Christ, Jordan, you really think this scene is important? The freeing of Moghedien was important. Show it to us over and over and over again.
No, it's in. Oh, it's dead. Nope, it's in the thing. Your thing's shot apart again.
Ah, it is. Okay.
Halima, or Arengar, chuckled richly.
And we know who Arengar is forsaken. We've already been given that pretty much.
No.
Yeah.
That was a whiplashy sort of moment. Yes, it is. No, it isn't. Yes, it is. No, it isn't.
It could be. It could be like an extra bit that was added into Lord of Chaos out. Like, you're totally right about that. It could have been that way.
That he just needed this scene to do 2 different things, and so he put it in twice.
Because it's a great cliffhanger for the end of a book.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's so good.
But you need more detail.
You do, yeah. Do you need it? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do not question the lack of detail in this podcast. We love it. More detail, better. 12, 13, 14. The last 3 books weren't detailed enough, is what I'm saying. We needed
I will nod
more.
to that.
Well, my working theory is that Robert Jordan never expected it to be 3 books. I know that that's what it says, and that's what he said, but I don't believe that he went into either world thinking this is going to be a 3-book series. I don't buy it.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I do a slightly different edit on Dragon Reborn. Make Baal-Zaman actually the Dark One. You could end it there.
Yeah, I know, I get that, and I've had that argument too, like how book 1 is almost a standalone book, and the trilogy is like a standalone trilogy, and if you hate it, then you don't have to keep reading it, but, I mean, that's why book 4 is so
and we all agree
pivotal.
that book 4 is the opening of the series, up.
So it's like the first book where all the characters don't meet up at the end and save the world, or whatever's happening, right? It's the first book where it's like, everybody has a different endpoint.
Yeah, and different endpoints that are not all resolved or wrapped up.
Yeah.
They're not even all proper cliffhangers. Some of them are just mid-plot at the end of that book. It's
like,
okay.
Yeah, the girls are like still in Tanchico, and it's like, okay, we did it, but it's like you're still in the middle of a, city with Black Aja and riots, but yeah, at least Perrin had sex, so that's good.
That's what's important.
I just had sex.
Oh my god.
So
Who was it that sent me the video of jizz in my pants? Who sent that? Because of the latest episode talking about Perrin finally smelling Fael after all those chapters away from her. And I'd never seen that video or heard that song before. So it was okay. Obscure saying it was John this morning. That, of course, it would be John because John's
Lonely Island. You never. Oh my god, you don't know who Lonely Island is?
No.
I'm honestly shocked. Like, as a Canadian, I don't know. Like, that was like the main thing. That was the funniest thing in Canada for years.
I know this group. I didn't know they were called the Lonely Island.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I was completely ignorant of all of it, and yeah, this morning John posted that video.
Y'all have some homework to do, so that's your mission. It's There's so much good stuff, and it's all fairly old now, I suppose. Like, I don't think, but like, and JT, like Justin Timberlake does a lot of cameos in it and stuff because he's buddies with them. Sorry, I came at you really hard for not knowing. I feel bad now.
I just didn't know the name. It's one of those things that like.
I got like really personally offended here for a minute.
You did, yeah. No, and you also brought the as a Canadian, which like that hurts me deep because like. I'm an aspiring Canadian, right? Like, I was born in Canada, and I feel like I should be Canadian, but I'm so American, it's not even funny. Like, I have no Canadian cultural experience whatsoever.
Well, do you like syrup?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you're like halfway there.
Well,
are you cool with, like, healthcare? Are you good with that?
Fuck healthcare, man.
Okay.
I want to die sick.
You are going to have to pay more for your liquor, but I mean, there's some downsides.
No, I don't drink liquor. And I make my own beer.
Oh, then you're good. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're trying to get to Egwene feeling the sharp snap of the bond being broken. And then she goes running off
right after she's thinking to herself, like, oh, there's ferrets here.
Yeah. And then she feels the snap and then goes running off to see if she can get herself killed real quick. Because that's the practical thing to do when the Forsaken gets released, is to go running towards the thing that just got released from bondage. Yes.
She makes that point to herself.
She does.
And if she had still been here, I just ran right into a trap. Which, I mean, I know a lot of our characters like to run right into traps, but at least this time she, like, had the sense to be like, that wasn't a great idea.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, after the fact, though, like, before she got there, she could have been like, wait, should I do this? And then, like...
Right. But yeah, I mean, she really very much could have been going up against two Forsaken.
Yeah, she could have been killed or captured or compulsed right then and there. No problem.
Yeah, immediately.
If Halima and Moghedien hadn't both been on a quest to make that as quick and quiet of an escape as possible, Egwene is toast as of that moment.
And I mean, chances of that actually happening, like, they are in a camp full of Aes Sedai, and there is a big risk for the Forsaken, and we do know that Moghedien's a runner. Like, she's not gonna, she's not a fight for your life. Like, so she did get lucky.
And as far as Halima's concerned, Halima already has Egwene under her thumb,
True.
so there's no need to...
The headache is already going a little bit, like, in that moment.
Right, exactly. We've already seen the headache. Yeah, the headache is already happening, so...
Yeah.
But yeah, she definitely is. It was a bad idea, and she did get a little bit lucky, but I understand why we didn't see them attack her here, so...
And then Chesa comes running up behind Egwene, which is like, yes, she was waiting outside the tent, so it's perfectly innocent, but also, if you're looking out, it's like, you're right there. You're right there. Are you sure you're not a darkfriend?
And she was sent out right beforehand. Like, it's just, the red herring. The red herring is in your face.
Yep. And then she just, like, immediately diffuses and obfuscates with nattering on about wickedness in general and the ungratefulness of Marigan in particular. Like, she's just so easy to dismiss. Jordan spends, like, 3 paragraphs on content, and I'm always like, Kate, go faster. Skip this part. This is boring.
Just because we know Chesa's
nothing. There's nothing there. It's just fluff. And Jordan makes you read it every time.
But if he didn't put this in, you wouldn't be able to filter.
Yeah.
You'd always be able to filter the bad guys from the good guys.
Brilliant.
So
it's brilliant.
This is cover. It's duck and cover for all of his hidden... he has to have red herring characters, or else it's going to be obvious who the bad guys are.
If the characters inside the story have to be kept guessing, you as the reader have to be kept guessing. Otherwise, your sense of uncertainty is completely not shared with characters.
I love her thought process on, like, trying to whittle down who... I think I'm jumping ahead here, but trying to whittle down who this was, who could have done it. It's such a good thought process. Just because of, like, how wrong all the information is.
Good reasoning, bad facts.
The idea of a man and woman's body is something she's just never even considered.
Transmigration of souls? What? This is not something that the Aes Sedai are familiar with. This is a Dio power exclusively.
And exclusive to Sheriam Ghoul.
Yeah, not even like the soul switching thing. Even the fact that she's like, okay, so, it couldn't be Ishamael because he was killed probably. And then she's like, oh, and Agenor and Balthamel, they were killed. And it's like, well, okay, but not... The whole body return she doesn't know about, and then she's like, Moraine killed Bilal, and he's like the legit one who got offed immediately. He's like, I think the first one who officially died.
Actually dies.
Yeah, and it's like we saw him once. He's like, he's gone, so not a big deal. And then she like lists off Asmodean, Demandred, and Samael, but it's just so funny because of everybody who she thinks is dead. Like none of them are dead except for the one.
Well, Asmodean's pretty dead.
Oh,
is he dead at this? Did he die last book?
Fires of Heaven.
Oh yeah.
Book 5.
Fires of Heaven, right? Yeah. He
this
gets
is
killed
7.
really
He's
quick.
Been dead for a while.
Right. Yeah, I always forget what book things happen in. So
he dies and is resurrected by Balefire when Rand
and then he
Balefires
dies again.
Ravine, and then he dies right after. He's alive for like a day. He gets resurrected for like a day. Yeah.
You want to know a funny thing I was thinking and I couldn't talk about when we just finished Shadow Rising? So I have to talk about it with you guys because I have no other options. So when Couladin announces himself as Karkarn, and he does the look at my arms thing, and then Rand comes up behind him and does that. The best option, if Rand knew what he was doing, would be to immediately Balefire Couladin, because turning back the clock far enough would mean Couladin never did the arm thing. Therefore, there was never a second Karkarn, meaning there wouldn't be a breaking of the Aiel. So
I'm gonna push back on you.
Sure. I just thought about it like 2 minutes ago, so like
Balefire does not affect memories. You can always remember what happened, even when the event changed.
Okay.
So everyone is still going to remember him raising up his arms, even though it didn't happen. So you can't prevent the exchange of information.
But more pushback, if you murder him immediately, there's no secondary Caracarn to follow. So
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Murdering, yeah. But all I'm saying is balefire
That's
and
fair.
fire don't make any difference. Just murder him right away, and you are good.
Could you do something about the whole, like, because there weren't a ton of Aiel there, so like if he did balefire Couladin, then he takes back the event of that happening. The people there would remember it, but then would it be like a faulty memory?
I mean, mandala effect
Could you
kind
spin
of
it?
thing.
Could you could you spin it on the news to be a way where that didn't happen?
You balefire Asmodean so that he raises up his arms
And the
there's no
dragons
dragons on them.
unswirl.
But when did the because how hard would you have to balefire him
3
for
days.
that to? Ooh, that's
Too
a
much.
that's a heavy
Yeah.
that's a heavy
Because
one.
we get like what, half an hour because of the turn. Yeah.
So-
I love the idea of them dissolving off his arms, though. I love that cinematically.
What like assuming Asmodean put them on there right before he walked?
That's what I'm saying.
You
It's
know.
like, do we have to like turn back like 4 days or something? Like how long was?
No, we're going to assume, and this is not true at all, because obviously Asmodean put them on quite a bit earlier. We see them in conference many days beforehand.
Sure.
And then Couladin acts like an arrogant asshole because he has them for quite a while. So, not canon. But assuming Asmodean put them on there right before he walked out there, and as soon as Rand saw them, he turned and balefired Asmodean, I could see them just like melting
That would
away.
have been so.
Just be like, I am the Caracarn. You are
I can
not.
unmake the dragons.
What can be made can be
Oh my
unmade.
god!
Yeah,
And then
right?
it would be setting you up for how good
Hey,
of your
totally
situation
relevant.
goes.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah.
I love it.
Oh, yeah, and obviously you don't remember dying because, you're not there to remember dying.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so that's not a balefire memory thing. That's dead people don't remember being dead because being dead is nothing. Which is actually an interesting philosophical statement from Jordan. The fact that everyone remembers what happened during the balefire except the people who died.
Maybe it's because time stops flowing for them.
Exactly.
So
But it has implications about death.
It does. Yeah, that's fair. But I mean, we can also talk about how the last battle has a huge, the problem of evil implications. So the whole philosophical notion of like the problem of evil. So if evil exists, then how does a good, benevolent, omnipotent God exist if there is evil in the world? And the entire last battle with Rand versus the Dark One is a literal like 1-for-1 comparison of why there has to be evil in the world, because if there was no evil, this is what would happen. So it's like you could do a pretty big comparison on that kind of. That's a whole other.
I occasionally come down on the side that the Dark One and the Creator are the same being, and because they both talk in all caps.
yeah.
Okay, who talked to Rand in Eye of the World?
That's Creator. It has to be the Creator.
Okay.
Yeah. And so and then Dark One at the end.
Okay, but it was the voice he had heard before.
Yeah, he says he'd only heard it once before. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, they're clearly one and the same. It's
On some level.
the
On a level.
singularity
That's
versus
again philosophy here.
the moving universe, right? Like it's pre-Big Bang and post-Big Bang. There is no such thing as pre-Big Bang, but you know what I mean. Like
Yeah.
Well, and for me, I look at the symbol of the Aes Sedai, and I look at the flame and the fang, and like the flame and the fang are distinct, but they're both the symbol of the Aes Sedai. They're both the yin yang symbol, right? Like same thing with the Dark One and the Creator. Like the Dark One is the fang, and the Creator is the flame.
Yeah. Well, that moves into the whole like that's why Rand can't kill the Dark One. You can't do that. That's not how this works.
Because then the wheel stops turning. And I know the wheel is supposed to be male and female. Half the Sidaris is turning the wheel.
but the wheel is also
yeah,
neither
right.
good nor evil, which very much fits into this. Like the two that come together, that's the real thing. Is the whole. It's made of parts because that makes us have a better way to describe it and exist. Like everything together all at once, everyone is not interesting.
And I don't necessarily buy the order versus chaos argument for the Dark One. If you read Dragonlance is absolutely order versus chaos. That is the context. I wouldn't say the Dark One is necessarily chaos. The Dark One he likes letting the Lord of Chaos rule. Don't get me wrong, right? That furthers his own ends. But Rand is more chaos than the Dark One.
Yeah, I
the
would
Dark
agree.
One is kind of ordered. The Dark One is lawful evil. He is not chaos.
I think the Dark One is like entropy. It's not chaos. It's chaotic on its way to its end.
Yeah.
But
sometimes the words can be used in like a colloquial sense too,
fair.
And that's part of the issue with the whole philosophy of like chaos and is the universe
yeah, are we talking about
order
mathematical
or chaos, or is it both?
or
It's
like colloquial? Yeah, no, that's very fair.
So again, we're getting into like deep philosophical discussions here, and
right, because chaotic behavior in like differential equations is a thing.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's like.
And it's there's a lot of math
chaos
that is not what people colloquially mean when they say chaos.
This little thought about here how the Forsaken showed no sign of agelessness. Yeah, just the Aes Sedai who swear on the oath, Rod.
Yeah, and she's like, maybe not aging is a connection to the Darkwind thing, and it's just like, yes, because of course, like a non-binary power and getting away from aging are evil.
There's the layering of effects. The same thing happens with Rand when there's the oddness in the one power. It's like he's going insane. There's the oddness from Ebu Dar, and he's crossed the streams with Moradin, which is giving him more.
Oh, and he's using Kalandor. Oh no, that's all the powers weird, right?
All that does happen, but yes, so all of those things are coming together to make you're like, wait, what is the weirdness around Ebu Dar? Is that have something to do with what? So there's a little bit of that.
Yeah,
just trying to figure out like what is he actually? What's the effect? What's the effect that's causing the cause?
And you have to throw everything you know into the thing. When nothing makes sense, right? You have to start working through. So, of course, the Dark One gets to be on the list, but it's funny to me that like true agelessness is clearly something to do with the Dark One, or not agelessness. However that works, I don't know. It's funny, and it's yeah.
Like the Dark One protects you from the ageless look, so you can't be identified as a channeler type thing, right?
Well, here's a question too with the whole. So the Dark One likes to promise immortality. And one of the things that I've always kind of thought about is if the Dark One promises immortality, he also has the ability to put a soul into another body, essentially, to continue that life. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you get to stay in the same body forever, because people like, Balthamel, who is really close, like, he didn't get in a new body, and it didn't go so well for him because his body was, like, decaying because it was so close. And all the Forsaken that we have, all of them are still within the normal range of ages.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even Ishamael, he was out, and then he was in, and then he was out, then he was in, like, kind of sorted, however you want to define that, but he wasn't out for 3,000 years in the sense that he should be such an aged body/person, so the immortality that the Dark One grants isn't, like, you get to be in Seth's body forever as Seth. It's like, no, your soul gets to be reproduced, so, and then it kind of makes me think, did Ishamael, because he's, like, the one unique... He's unique amongst the Forsaken because of his nihilism and what his actual mission is, right? Is he a reincarnated soul, or is he like, did he get to live for a long time, getting pushed into new bodies? And it's like, if that happened, how long would you have to live before you became nihilistic too? Like when people say immortality to me, that sounds nice on the outside, but if you actually went into, okay, bread is now eternal forever, it's horrible. I don't want to live forever because, like, you get to see everyone you know and love die, and love and die and love and die over and over and over again.
I haven't really gotten that argument. I'm not that attached to people.
It's like, at some point you too would be like, I want death. Like, you would be nihilistic in that sense.
I feel like at some point people become NPCs in your life, and you're like, oh yeah, I turned away for 5 minutes and they're dead again. Jesus. Different ways of being immortal, right? And
sure.
One of the ways I like is that what if by being immortal you have like a limited memory, and over time you forget the old stuff, and like, yes, you may be 10,000 years old, but you only really remember the last 2 or 300 years.
Yeah.
Like, you really don't, you have an overload, sort of an escape hatch.
This is kind of like my own little brain that I like to kind of think about how Ishamael fits into all this. So the Dark One's plan is to break the Wheel of Time, basically, to conquer everything, and he can't do that. He needs, like, Rand, for example, to do it. But how do you convince regular people in the world to be on board with that so that there's nothingness forever? It's like they all want power and immortality. So you get one guy, Ishamael, and then basically make him live for eons and eons and eons to a point where he's nihilistic, and he's like, yeah, we're in this together. You and me, Dark One, we're going to break this wheel. So it's kind of like he's the one guy who the Dark One pulled along from age to age to age until Ishamael's finally like 100% on board, like nihilistic, yeah, let's ruin everything.
I never thought of that.
It doesn't fit, but it's like I like to kind of play with that little.
My argument against that
Yeah.
is Brigida, who remembers all of her past lives and has no issues around nihilism or anything like that.
In Teleran Riyadh, though.
Well, even when she's pulled out, she, like, right away, she still has memories of all her lives.
But it fades. It starts to fade. And that was kind of your point, is like, if she had have kept that and then make her live another 10,000 years, maybe she'll be on board with, like, nihilism, right?
Maybe she's a freaking stone eater, right? Like,
well, there's that. But then the other side of that is that she's got a relationship that doesn't die. And that's always been where I go with the would you be immortal thing, is like, with one companion who doesn't die and has the same lifespan as me and an option out, yeah, bring on the 40,000 years of watching mountains rise and fall. I'm here for it.
And then Seth, you could timber.
Can my companion be a dog?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's like,
You took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah, no, for sure. You just
you
need some other constant North Star in your life, and then I don't see the problem with it. You know, like, bring on the immortality. I just don't want to be, like, completely in my own head. You know, a dog, a cat, a human, whatever.
I don't want to spend eternity with just myself. Have you met me? That's not going to go very well.
I mean, I'm very good at self-entertaining, but not that good. So,
I mean, how many times can I read The Wheel of Time in eternity?
Well, let's see.
Can you memorize every single word in
oh,
The
in
Wheel
like
of
1,000
Time?
years, no problem. Moving on.
Yeah, no problem.
But yeah, I
No
mean,
problem.
Broken Earth, the Stone Eaters is like, finally, a version of immortality that doesn't make it seem like a shit show. Like, yeah, they've got their issues, but like, they do some cool shit knowing that they have centuries of not getting bored to work with.
They do the whole, like, making trees grow in patterns that you want by using your own body as a stand for them is kind of cool. That, like, oh, it's just easier for me to stand here and hold it for a couple of centuries while it grows into the shape I want than
But like
anything
with
else.
them, obviously they have a different, their sense of time ebbs and flows. Like, that's the one thing, is like, I don't know if I could stand this speed of time for 40,000 years, right? If I could skip ahead a few millennia by blinking.
Have you two read or watched Altered Carbon?
Yes. Only watched.
Yeah, so like that's the first season especially, like, was so good, but it's an interesting take where it's like, boom, you have immortality and immediately it's a bad thing. Like, literally right from the get-go, they're like, oh shit, actually this is a terrible plan, because let's see what capitalism does to people within a span of 100 years or 300 years or whatever. So like, it goes really wrong really fast.
The Forsaken showed no sign of agelessness for some reason. Maybe it was some effect of being connected to the Dark One. This was dithering. She had to start thinking clearly. Chesa, look like you need your head rubbed for the ache is what you... Yes, Mother? Find Swan and Liana. Tell them to come to me, but don't let anyone hear you. Grinning, Chesa dropped a curtsy and scampered out. She could hardly avoid knowing the currents that swirled around Egwene, yet she found all the plotting and scheming fun. Not that she knew more than surface, and little enough of that. Egwene did not doubt her loyalty. She should, editor's note. But Chase's opinion of what was exciting might change if she learned the depth of those swirls. Channeling the oil lamps inside the tent alight, Egwene blew out the lantern and set it carefully in a corner. Maybe she had to think clearly, but she still felt as if she was stumbling in the dark.
Yeah, because you're surrounded by dark friends.
Seriously, stumbling blocks and dark friends. That's what's happening.
I mean, it's so good, because like, in my brain I always like suspected romaine lettuce, like you said. It's so funny. I don't think I've ever heard that before, but that's like great. They're the same person too. Like, there's no difference.
And Delane, romaine.
I stumbled into that by trying to be like, I was like, romaine. Like, that was definitely a stumble word, like,
and
thing.
then I put it on the Instagram, and now it's canon.
Yeah. And we all knew exactly what I was
meant.
talking about.
Yeah,
Everyone was like, oh yeah, romaine, totally.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny, and it's like, those are the two that aren't, and then you got like Sheriam and Delana in this chapter, and
they're also like flavorless, crunchy.
Yeah, as exciting as lettuce, like.
Yeah, you got spinach, and spinach is a dark friend.
Yeah, and it's just It just if they were a little bit saucier, you know, if they had a little attitude.
I mean, they both make it to the last battle, but one of them gets killed. Right?
Yeah, in the shock attack, as I recall.
Right. Okay.
Because Egwene's like, don't channel, and she channels.
Yeah,
and
pretty
like,
much.
Balefire.
Yeah. Right.
Not
okay.
Balefire, but Rain of Fire.
Shoot.
Yeah.
I would just want to say, Brett, thank you so much again for coming out and hanging out with us for the, I don't know, like 9th time now. You've been on a whole bunch. We really appreciate it.
It's getting up there. I love it. So thanks for having me. Yeah, sorry we went off on a bunch of tangents.
Thank you for going off on tangents.
Thank you. That is what we are here for.
It is
we
the
are
point.
tangent
It's
heavy right
really
now.
fun to talk to you.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure I'll be back in the summertime some point. There's one more chapter, and I have no idea which one. We'll see you then.
Stay tuned for that. You see the College Humor sketch from the CEO of Skype?
No, but that ought to be good.
College Humor is pretty abrasive,
Yeah.
mostly, and the messages from the CEO tend to run a little long and overstay their welcome, but from the CEO of Skype is pretty fucking funny. He's so offended about Zoom. So offended about Zoom.
I did read that, yes, because he's like, dude, we've been here the whole time. Then the pandemic hits and this Zoom comes out of nowhere. What the hell, people? Brand loyalty. Are you kidding me?
We've even got a cute name, Skype.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be fair, I mean, like, Skype had years to get their shit together, and they failed.
And they failed.
They failed miserably from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember, like,
Yeah.
like 10 years ago, 12 years ago, it's like Skype was new or whatever. I don't know if that's when it was. It was new to me at that point. And at that point, it was terrible. And at this point, it's still terrible. It's like you had all this time to be the perfect.
Yeah.
But no, that's how it goes.
No, and I've even found things like Apple FaceTime to be inferior to Zoom. That it cuts out more often, the quality tends to drop. It's reliable until it's not with Apple FaceTime, unlike with like Skype and stuff like that, which I find to be just completely unreliable. But Zoom's been pretty rock solid as much as I've used it.
I have never wanted to do much video chatting before the era of everyone doing everything through Zoom, so I'm just like, well, at least when I finally got dragged into this bullshit, it works consistently.
Yeah.
So
I gotta say though, it's like kind of nice that with the pandemic. Sorry, this is wrong phrasing, but so we live in a different city than all of our parents. So everybody's in Winnipeg or Ontario, and it like FaceTiming and the video calls and like video chatting over dinner wasn't really something that we ever even considered until this happened. It's like, oh, we can actually do these remote, family gatherings a little bit more often. So that has been a bit of a blessing.
yeah.
I do really like the idea of having one device for each person and just like setting them up at their seat on the dinner table so you can like turn to them and look at them.
Yeah.
Yeah, or like I started talking to my grandma every week because she was just like, I haven't seen you in a really long time and we're not going to see each other for a really long time. Let's like do a Zoom call. Now we call each other every Monday.
Yeah.
And like have a much closer relationship than we've ever had just because like it's kind of nice and Zoom's just so easy and right there and like it's not like it wasn't an option before, but the pandemic was what kicked that process off. So
Yeah.
So was I supposed to want to call my parents more during the pandemic? Because
now, this is my grandmother. It's different.
okay, fair enough. Yeah, mine are all dead, so I can't. Yeah.
Yeah. For my work, we use Teams.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's pretty good too. It's like I don't know, it's the same thing basically, different format.
That's the Microsoft version?
Yeah, Microsoft Teams. Yeah. And I've used Google Meet before, which is like same idea. I think Zoom is you have to for most people you got to download the app or you got to you don't have to have an account technically to use it.
The big problem with Google Meet is hunting down the employees. Like if
they're
yeah, and then slow roasting the meat over the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Google Meet.
It's made out of real Google.
It's real Google employees.
Which you never know. It could be like
Google is people.
Corporations are people, my friend.
Yes. If only that was a dystopian fantasy.
I think because I was on Lord of Chaos and I was ragging on the book cover for Lord of Chaos because it's my least favorite. I hate the Lord of Chaos artwork. This one I love. It's so good, and I love the muscle definition that Rand's got going on. It's like, that's where we need the actors to be from season 1 to season 4 or 5. I got to see that trajectory.
Oh my God.
A bad Schwarzenegger Rand is better than a bad Nicolas Cage Rand, in my opinion. So
Not
I think
wrong.
I think this is a step up, definitely. And I think one of the things I really love about this book is it's the only Sweeney cover that isn't the same color as every other book cover.
Different mood. Yeah.
It's back to Eye of
that.
the World blue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
little more of
nighttime.
that
It's
horror.
another nighttime thing with the moon,
Spooky.
and it's very much going back to what makes Eye of the World so striking.
And that was the one cover, because all my other covers were the Sweeney covers, and that was the only
Sweet.
one that wasn't.
Not
Sweet.
Sweeney.
I always want to call him Todd Sweeney.
Yeah, which is rude because Sweeney Todd is
No,
not
yeah.
the same thing as
he's
this
a
book
murderer, I
illustrator.
think, right?
Yeah. There's a musical
I
about
mean-
how it's funny.
He murdered these covers.
Heyo. Okay.
Also not wrong.
Daryl K. Sweet, not Todd Sweeney.
Yeah.
Have I mentioned names are hard?
Yeah.
This
Once or
podcast
twice.
once or twice? Yeah.
This is a slightly name soupy chapter, but it's not bad. It's most of the big players.
That's not bad, yeah.
It's not. It's. I think it's the shortest one that I've been on for. It felt the shortest.
Very
It is. It's the
short.
shortest one we've encountered in a while. It's also a bit of a replay.
It's very
Yeah.
light in content. Lots of exposition. It's recap. Blah.
I'd prefer to
Why not?
talk about it first, and then we'll go back through it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah. We did that a couple of times
Yeah.
with Brian, because we start talking to Brian
my
and we'd
God.
go off on these,
Yeah.
30-minute tangents and be like, should we start the chapter? It's like, we've already talked about most of the things in the chapter at this point.
Yeah,
Like,
you had Brian
I
on
guess
for
I'll do
3 in a
reading.
row, right, or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a funny little.
Scheduling snafu. That
I was like,
was
that's great.
Yeah, not even a stuff. I like having people on in a row. It happens multiple times in the upcoming schedule,
Yeah, I mean-
especially when the chapters are contiguous.
Yeah,
and,
it was just a
yeah.
funny miscommunication why that
Yeah.
happened. But yeah, no, that was a lot of circumlocution around actually what we were trying to talk about.
Listen, I don't think it was miscommunication at all. Brian gave me those 3 dates, and I put them down for those 3 dates.
It's so true. Every single thing that happened was true and complete, and that's why it's funny.
I'm not sure what he was thinking when he sent me those 3 dates. Was he giving me options, or he was like one of these 3?
Yeah,
is what he was trying to
he
say?
figured that you'd want to have him for one, I bet.
Yeah, well, no, I don't. That's not how this works.
It's a delight. It's a delightful mistake. Miscommunication, signals not hitting each other. I don't know. It was
Right.
great.
And Brian was a delight to have on as well.
Quite.
So,
And I think it's
yes.
coming back. I think we've already got him on the schedule somewhere.
It kind of seems like nobody reads the emails that Seth sends out. I'm not the only one who doesn't read emails. I skim.
No, well, and that's the thing. Nobody reads emails.
No.
That's the dirty little secret. Everyone, put it in the subject header, or else no one's gonna know about it.
Or bold. Bold, I find sometimes works. It's like, this is
In the
the
first
important
3
sentence.
lines, yeah.
right.
Yeah.
If it's longer than 3 lines, yeah, bold what you're actually looking for.
Yeah.
Totally. But it's hard when you actually want to send a fairly informational how-to email,
Yeah.
but also want a response to it. You almost have to break that up, where it's like, I want to ask a question and then I want to inform you.
Yeah.
Yeah, separate things.
Let's talk
People-
about work woes. The worst thing, I hate it so much if I send an email and then I've asked maybe 2 or 3 questions and they send back an email with one answer to the
Yep.
one question, and it's like, hey, there's more questions that need to be answered. And it's just a series of copy and paste the email over and over again until it's answered. It's terrible.
You send them 4 different emails, one with each question. That's how you do it. Or you respond, per my previous email, here's my next question.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Because per my
That's a
previous
good
email
one.
is about the rudest thing you can say to anyone in an office.
Somehow everyone complains about it, and yet everyone suffers from other people doing it.
Well, sometimes you just have to do it intentionally to get a point across too. I just won't respond to it.
Yeah. We all don't read email, but it hurts when you spend a lot of time crafting a meticulous email and trying to rewrite your sentences and really make sure that you get the information across, and then the person turns to you and goes, wait, what? I didn't read that.
You,
Why don't you just tell me? And you're like,
Here's another tricky one where you do put in that much effort and work into crafting the email, and then you get like a one-word response like K.
yeah.
It's just like, you know how much anxiety I just went through formulating what I was going to ask?
And then the K doesn't answer whatever question.
No, not at all. Of
no,
course not. It's
yeah.
like K yes or K no.
No,
Or,
right?
to me.
I'm like, can you give me the frequency at which the experiment's vibrating? Okay.
Yes, I can, or yes, I will, or... Good times. Communication is fun.
Especially between Almerlin and her keeper.
Oh.
With the segue.
Good segue. That was good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or
Support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?